Those are the sort of the family trees as I've got them. That's for the sort of the Ray side of it, and that's for.
Are you recording?
Yes, for the Walsh side of it.
Yes, well, first of all, John Henry's wife's name, maiden name, was Milner.
Right, I'll tell you what. So that's John Henry of 1868.
Anne Elizabeth, she was.
Yeah, thank you.
She was always known to her contemporaries as Lizzie.
Can I just make a note of that? So Milner, Milner,
N-E-R.
yes. And that's Lizzie.
Have you got details of her date of birth
So that's-
and so on?
I've got her born in 1869 in Dewsbury.
Right.
Okay.
And you know when they died?
And that was right. That's hang on, just let me. So that was your mother.
No,
No, it's my
grandmother.
hang on, let's have a look.
My grandmother.
Sorry, yes, of course, Annie Wraith and Dean Furness. Yeah, yeah.
She died in 1938.
1938.
Yes.
Right, I'll put that down.
And Grandad John Henry died in 1936. I can give you the very date, it was the 9th of December.
There you go.
Sorry, 9th of October.
9th of October.
1936. I can't remember the precise date when his widow died, but it
Yeah.
was certainly in the spring of 1938.
Right, okay. So, I mean, what do you know about Maud Walsh's family, sort of her parents now?
I know virtually nothing of her origins. I remember that she had a sister who was, what was her name? Her married name was Ball, B-A-L-L.
Ah, right, married. Name. Or, I'm sure I've actually got some
What
information.
her first name was. I barely knew her. I doubt if I saw her more than twice in all my lifetime.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't imagine.
George Henry Wraith, who was your grandfather, and
Yeah.
my uncle,
Yeah.
was born in 1898 on the 22nd of April, I think.
1898, yeah, that's what I've got there. You think it was 22nd of
I think
April?
it was 22nd of April.
Right.
And I think he lived to be 55 years of age, so that suggests that he died sometime in 53.
Now, I'm sure he wouldn't have been 57.
57 was he?
Well, it was just that it was.
Right, okay. Perhaps I'm confusing that with the fact that he died in 55 then.
The reason why I say that is because when my dad died, my mum was saying that he lived 10 years longer than his father. My dad died when he was 67. So that obviously, presumably that meant
Right,
his father died when he was 57.
what you've learned from your inquiries is probably much more reliable than my memory.
Right, okay, so possibly. Right, okay. Now I've got this, I'll just let you have that.
Yeah.
Okay. So from a previous letter what you have sent me, I'm sure you said that Maud Walsh's sister, her married name was Ball. Ball. Yeah, now I'm sure I've got some more details of that. I'm just trying to find, there's your letter. Now that was either mentioned by you or by somebody else.
Well, I barely knew Maud's sister. I
Right.
have a feeling that she was older than Maud.
Yeah.
but I can't be sure about that even.
And did she just have a sister, or did you know she had any
I
brothers
have
too?
no idea what other relatives she had.
And I take it you don't know anything about her parents?
Nothing at all, no. The really important thing to tell you about your grandmother, Maud Walsh,
Yes.
is that she worked in the mill, at Spinkwell Mills, I think it was, where my father was a fettler.
Right, yes.
And they knew one another through that link, you see.
Yes.
When George Wraith came back from the war, which would be about 1919, I suppose, he found it very difficult to get any work.
Yeah.
And he lived at home with his parents. And then sometime about the middle 20s, he thought it was about time he was getting married.
Yes.
He'd be, what, 28, 27, 28 or something of that sort.
Yeah.
And I remember him saying to my father, did he know anybody who would make a good wife? Or words to that effect.
Yeah. Carry on.
And my dad said to him, well, there's Maud Walsh, but she's a Catholic. Now, you see, that was the important thing to my father.
Yes.
He was a free churchman, always had been and always would be.
Yes.
So that he had no dealings with the Catholics at all.
So that was a big
And
downside to it, was
it
it?
says volumes for the character of Maud,
Yes.
that he was prepared to recommend her as a suitable wife,
Even though she was Catholic.
even though she was a Catholic.
Yes, yes.
Now, she was a very quiet sort of person. I think this was partly because when I saw her, she was always in the company of Protestants,
Yes.
you see. And she was naturally reserved, but I always thought she was a lovely person. And they were married, I think, in 1929.
Yes.
I judge that from the fact that my brother and I went round collecting guests in the taxi.
Yes.
And I know that I must have been about 8 at the time.
Right.
This dates it for me to some, almost precisely, I think, 1929, when they were married.
Yes.
They were married on the first Saturday of Dewsbury Feast.
Yes.
And believe it or not, they came on holiday with us on his honeymoon to Cleethorpes,
Yes.
where we stayed in a house.
What, like a bed and breakfast?
No, it was more than that.
Yes.
We had 4 meals a day there.
Oh, right, yes.
I was going to tell you the name of the street, but that's just eludes my memory for the moment. It was a little boarding house which was run by a chap called Addison, whose origins were in Dewsbury, but who moved to Cleethorpes to manage this
The guest house.
if you like. Yes.
Well, how can you remember so much about that when you were 8 at the time? Did you ever go back there?
We went 2 or 3 times to the same place.
Right.
Cleethorpes was the place where we took our holidays
Yes.
at that time.
Yes.
Later we moved to Morecambe.
Right. Was that going to market a little
Which
bit?
wasn't much better, but I remember Cleethorpes very well. I was very impressionable at the time.
Yes.
And we went, occasionally on a trip to Skegness or Mablethorpe or somewhere like that.
Yes.
And the feature I remember about Cleethorpes is that it had a little monument with a leaking boot on it. And I guess it's probably still there if you were to go to Cleethorpes.
I haven't been. I don't know if I've ever been to
No,
Cleethorpes.
has to see the leaking boot.
Yeah.
Cleethorpes is just 2 miles on from Grimsby.
Yes. Yes.
But the important thing about Maud is that her character obviously shone through her personal circumstances, and even the fact that she was a Catholic, sufficient for my father to say to your grandfather, she's a good prospect, as it were,
Yes.
although she's a Catholic.
So-
that really...
So what church did they get married in?
the Catholic Church in Batley-Car.
Right. It wasn't St Paulinus then?
No,
Right.
it was the Catholic Church in Batley-Car. Do you know what it is?
No, I don't.
Well, you go down up a road,
Mm.
and there's a road on the right which comes out opposite the Wheelwright Grammar School.
Yes.
And it was somewhere in
Is that
area.
near where the Church of Latter-day Saints is? You know what I mean, the Northern Church.
Well,
Well,
I
actually,
didn't know it.
that is
I
opposite.
didn't know
That is
it.
opposite
Beckett Road
Wheelwright.
it was, wasn't it?
Yes, yes, I know what you mean. That is.
Beckett Road.
Yeah.
Yes. And the Catholic Church was somewhere between there and Upper Road at the top of Batley-Car.
Right. Okay.
Their best man was a chap called Tom Norton,
Mm.
who was a friend of George's. The Westborough Methodist Church had a cricket team in the early 20s,
Yes.
and they both played in the cricket team. Your father was predominantly a bowler, and Tom was supposedly someone who got the runs.
Yes.
If he got 6 or so, he was doing well.
So going back to Maud's wedding, I mean,
Towards wedding.
was there many guests sort of from her side of the family? Do you remember any of
I
those?
don't think there can have been,
Yeah.
because my brother and I toured in the taxi, collecting all the guests and bringing them to the church.
Yes.
See? And I guess Maud, as the bride, would be the last person to be picked up.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that must have been somewhere in Batley-Car.
Right.
That was certainly where she lived at the time.
Yeah.
When they were first married, they rented a little house in what I think was Upper Cross Street, or something of the sort. Do you know where Mackenzie Chapel is? The Wesleyan Chapel, at the bottom of Batley-Car. You go down up a road, and it divides. The left hand goes, where does it go? I'm not quite sure. The right hand will
yes.
take you into Bradford Road and on towards Dewsbury.
Yes. Yes.
Mackenzie Chapel was on the left there. Is it not still there?
I'm not sure.
No. Well, at any rate, it was there.
Yes.
And you went, where they lived was you went past Mackenzie Chapel, you turned left, you turned right, and you turned, that was it, up across the street.
Right. Yes.
I'm sure all those houses have been demolished since.
Yeah.
It was a very poor area, really,
Yes.
and probably as much as they could afford in rent.
Yeah.
And they lived there for, oh, I don't know how many years, until they found a house in Leatham Street,
Yeah.
which
Leatham Street.
almost backed onto where my grandfather lived in Back Leatham Street.
Right. Yes.
There was a little passage down by the house, and if you went through the passage from where my granddad
I
lived...
mean, that's not far from Green Lane, is it?
No, it isn't.
No.
You know, you could find Leatham Street today, I guess, although probably
Those
all the
houses aren't. No, those
no,
houses aren't
no.
there. No.
Oh, well, they came to live in Leatham Street.
Yes.
I can't tell you when. It seems to me that they were perhaps there in Batley-Car for 3 years or so, I don't know. Then they moved to Leatham Street, which again tended to isolate Maud, because she was being brought into the orbit of the Wraith family, you see. I fancy Maud must have had a bit of a problem at times in coping with all these Protestants. But she never complained, so far as I know. I think.
And she still went to Catholic church.
Oh yes, she still maintained her traditions with the Catholic Church.
And what about my dad's father?
Your dad's father,
Because I mean, Maud,
John Henry.
yeah, because Maud wanted my dad to be brought up as a Catholic, didn't she?
Oh, indeed, she did.
Mm.
That was a condition of which was understood from the very beginning.
Yeah.
That if there were any children, they'd be brought up as Catholics.
Yeah. So would my dad have gone to a Catholic church? When
I
was
don't
young?
remember him going to the Catholic Church. You see,
Yeah.
his mother became ill, probably about 1938 or so,
Yes.
and she was in and out of hospital for her last 2 years of her life.
Yes.
She had cancer. I think it was breast cancer.
Yes, it was.
And she died, if my recollection is right, in the autumn of 1940.
Because I've got a picture here. I don't know if it was you. Did you supply that picture? That's at some wedding anniversary. There's Maud there,
That's right.
and that's my father there.
Yes.
And I think she died possibly about 2 or 3 years after that picture was taken.
This
In
is.
fact, this is a picture you supplied. I think there was.
It's a
1936.
diamond
That was taken in
golden wedding,
1936.
1936, 7 or 8. That chap was a chap called May.
Oh, can I write?
This looks to me to be a photograph of the May family, as it were. Now, I can't quite remember who the Mays were, but obviously
Because
he was a May.
my mum can pick out quite a few people from that picture, but she didn't know who the main characters were.
No. Well, that looks to me to be taken in the grounds of Westborough Methodist Church. There's your father's,
That's
your
right, yes,
grandfather.
yeah.
There's a lot of Mays about there,
Right.
and certainly all the children will be Mays.
Now I've got here, in fact, let me just have a look. Right, on the back row, starting at Maud,
Yes.
there's Maud, then there's somebody who we don't know, then there's somebody else, and there's George Wraith, and then there's somebody we don't know, and then there's Eliza May,
That's right.
who's possibly related to Dad.
I can't quite remember what the relationship was, but obviously May married presumably a Wraith.
Right. Then we've got somebody else next to her who we don't know, and
Then
then
there's Olive Fox,
Olive Fox, yes,
Geoffrey Fox.
who was Eliza May's sister,
That's right.
and then we've
Yes.
got Olive's son,
That's it.
and what was his name?
Geoffrey.
Geoffrey Fox.
There's an old man next to them whom I don't recognise.
Yes, okay, and who next to
And
him?
then there's a younger man whom I don't recognise.
And what about next to him? Now the only other
There's a
person,
lady whom I don't recognise.
The
And
only
then I
per-
think the next person is another Fox, I think. I wouldn't be sure of that.
do you know that man to be Albert Laycock, the on the end?
Oh yes, Laycocks. They lived in Birstall.
Right.
But what the relationship was, I don't know.
And then we've got-
It's certainly a group of people, I think,
yeah,
taken at a wedding celebration or wedding anniversary of the May family.
yeah. We've also got
And
a
it
lot,
looks to me to be taken probably in the grounds of the Methodist Church chapel there.
right. Now, I know we know most people on the front. I don't know who that is. That's obviously my dad. Then there's John Field,
Field,
Richard
that was
Field,
the name. Yes.
Derek Field, and then that's possibly Eva Walker, who was a neighbour on
I
Backland
wouldn't
Street.
know. I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
The Field, I think this girl, who was a May,
Let me
married
see.
a chap by the name of Field and had this family by him. but that's your father.
Yeah.
And I certainly ought to know him, but I couldn't put a name to him. It's probably a celebration of a golden wedding of the May family.
Yeah, okay.
But we digress. I was going to tell you about more.
Yes.
During this period when she was so frequently ill,
Mm.
your father came to live with us because it was the only way. It was only 3 or 4 at the time,
Yes.
I suppose. Because my mother would look after him in our home,
Yes.
which was on North Pew.
Yeah.
Maud never really recovered. She was ill for certainly the last 2 or 3 years of her life,
Yes.
and gradually deteriorated,
Yeah.
and died, so far as I recall, about in the autumn of 1940. You'll have this record.
Yeah.
Uh,
I've got the details somewhere
yeah,
in here.
yes.
So, I mean, when they lived on Leatham Street, I mean, what did my dad's father do? What was his job then?
He was in the mill for the most part when he had a job.
Yes.
And there was a great deal of unemployment in the 20s and 30s.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember that he worked on the construction of what became Ravens House Road, which was at Scout Hill,
Yes.
and that was a temporary job.
Yeah.
Basically, he was a millman. Not quite sure what he did. My grandfather, John Henry Wraith, was what was called a Willyer. Willey-er.
I think I've got that in the census.
Don't ask me what a
return.
Willyer did, because I wouldn't know.
It's something in a mill, isn't it?
They all followed this sort of tradition of working in the mill
Yeah.
on really very low wages.
Yes.
My father kept a record of his earnings over a long period of years,
Mm.
and his average earnings throughout the 30s would be about 35 shillings a week,
Yeah.
£1.75 in today's currency.
Yeah.
And on that he brought up a family of 4.
Yeah.
Things were a lot cheaper these days, obviously.
It's all relative, I suppose, isn't it?
To come back to Maud,
So, I mean, when she was ill, my dad was staying with your family.
not your father, no.
Oh, right, sorry.
Not your grandfather, sorry. Wait. Not your grandfather. Your father
Yeah.
was in and out of our house
Yeah.
in the care of my mother
Yeah.
when Maud was in hospital.
Yeah.
And she would come out and then Kenneth would go back to his own family
Mm.
until the next emergency arose.
Yeah.
And it seemed to be arising every few months.
Really.
Kenneth eventually, when she died, came to live at our house. We almost adopted him.
Yeah.
Now, the great problem here was that Maud wanted Kenneth to be brought up as a Roman Catholic,
Mm.
but we were so averse to Roman Catholicism in our household that we couldn't possibly
Yeah.
have brought him up in that tradition.
Yeah.
We knew nothing about it.
Yeah.
So, in effect, by default, he grew up in the Methodist Church.
Yes.
And I remember there was a lot of grumbling from people at the time, from the people who were new to be Catholics,
Mm.
who said if his mother had been alive, he wouldn't have been brought up in the Methodist Church, which was true.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
it hurt.
I mean, was there any involvement from Maud's parents at all at that time?
I know nothing of Maud's origins at all. I imagine.
So it was,
I never knew her parents. I'm pretty certain that they never came to the wedding, so presumably they'd passed on by then.
Yes.
Maud would be about... She was a few years younger than George.
Mm.
George was 1898. She'd probably be about 1904, I should think.
Yes.
She died in perhaps
So she
1903. I think she was 37 when she died.
Yeah.
And it was a very painful experience for her.
Mm.
There were no drugs such as to alleviate pain such
Yeah.
as there are today.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm sure she was in very great pain for a long, long time.
Mm.
Eventually she went.
Yeah.
But my impression over all that, and despite the fact that I'd never known any other faith than the Methodist tradition,
Yes.
was that she was a gracious person.
Mm.
I liked her a great deal.
Yeah.
And I think that the really important thing is that my father, who would never have countenanced going anywhere but the Methodist Church,
Mm.
had such a respect for Maud that he was prepared to overlook the fact that she was a Catholic. Well, he didn't overlook it. He didn't overlook it.
Yeah.
It was always that there was always that prejudice against her
yeah.
for the way in which she was brought up, but that she was such a nice person that even my dad could recommend her
Yeah.
to your grandfather.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that speaks volumes to me, because the prejudices between Catholicism and Protestantism were so entrenched
Yeah.
in those days that she must have been a lovely person.
Yeah.
I always found her so.
So what happened to George after
Now then,
after she died? I mean, obviously he went on to marry Mary.
that
Nichols,
was
isn't
2 years later.
it? Right.
When Maud died, your father went back to live with him. You
Yeah.
see. Or did he? I doubt if he could have done, because he wouldn't have been at home to look after him.
Yeah.
He probably stayed on with us for a year or two,
Yeah.
until Mary Nichols
Yeah.
turned up.
Yes.
I knew nothing of Mary Nichols at all until she came to be a consort of George,
Yeah.
and they were married in St John's
You seen that picture of me?
Church. That's right. They were married in St John's Church about November 1942.
Mm-hmm.
I can be fairly sure about that, because I was his best man, and I was best man to my brother, who was married about the same time.
Yeah.
And I can date that quite accurately to the autumn of 1942.
Yeah.
My brother was married on the 9th of November, and my recollection is that George followed just a few weeks later,
Yeah.
probably before the end of November.
Yeah.
You'll get all this information from your inquiries into the
Yeah,
family history,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sure. So, I presume that your grandfather still had this tenancy in Leatham Street at that
Yeah.
time.
Well, is that not where? I mean, as a child, did you not used to sort of play with my mum in that area? Because I think, from what I gather, that's how they met. They used to play
Mary
as children.
Nichols.
Sorry?
Mary Nichols.
No, with my mum. That's where my dad and my mum met, sort of in that area, because they used to play together as children in that area. Because I presume my mum must have lived nearby when they were young.
Who are we talking about now?
You're talking about my mum,
Ruby.
Ruby,
Ruby.
And my dad, Kenneth.
Well, they were within a stone's throw of one another.
Yeah.
Ruby, as she will tell you, grew up in a little house that was up School Lane.
Yeah.
And Kenneth, of course, was just in Beedham Street, which was, it was literally within a stone's throw.
So he would have lived there, you think, with Mary Nichols? And presumably when they got married then, my dad went back to live with them?
Yes, I'm sure about that.
Yeah.
Yes. Kenneth lived with us for a few years,
Yeah.
intermittently,
Yeah.
shall we say.
Yeah.
I used to tease him abominably.
Mm. I remember you putting that to me in your
And
letter.
that was a reflection of the way in which his father had teased me as a boy. I remember him locking me in a cupboard one day. I was about 3 at the time. He put me in the cupboard, turned the snake of the thing.
Yeah.
And if I thought about it or had sufficient intelligence, then I could have turned the snake from the inside and opened the door.
Yes.
But I didn't know how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was shouting at him and getting into such a tizzy and going red in the face about this. And I said to him, when I get out of here, I'll bump thee, Wraith. And just at that moment, the parson walked in and heard what I was saying. Of course, I was released from the cupboard.
Yeah.
And that is just typical of George Wraith, that he wanted to tease me, just out of sheer, affection almost.
Yes, yeah.
And in the same way, I suppose, I did the same to Kenneth.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember once, I've probably told you this in some letter or other, we used to have occasionally a bottle of pop.
Mm.
The traditional pop in those days was dandelion and burdock.
Yeah.
But for some reason or another, we got hold of a bottle of green pop on one occasion. And we poured it out at this luncheon. And as soon as he drank it, I could see Kenneth's face drop and turn sour. He obviously didn't like it.
Mm.
And I remember saying to him, I like this pop. I think we'll almost have green pop in the future, you see. And the sort of awful look on his face of having to drink green pop. It was just fun to me.
Yeah.
And I suppose it was a bit unkind on the line. But really, I thought a lot of Kenneth.
Yeah, yeah.
Still have a photograph of my holding him when he was a babe of about...
Well, I've got the photo here.
Have you?
Hang on.
That's the one. Now that was taken from 17 North View, and you can see is a babe of not more than 6 months of age.
Yeah.
That must have been 1935.
1935.
Yes, it was more than 1935.
Yeah.
Just after I started at work. And it was a grand bairn.
Mm. So that's when you started at the Halifax?
Mm.
Yeah. Where was that?
In Westgate, where they still are, I think.
All right, yes. Yeah.
They've got an office at 37 Westgate.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's where I started with the Halifax.
And how old were you then?
Not quite 15.
Not quite 15.
Walter and I, my brother, both felt impelled to get a job as soon as we qualified at school in school certificate and matriculation and that sort of thing, because the family income was never adequate really to live the sort of quality of life that we wanted.
Yeah, yeah.
And he went to work for LB Holidays, which you showed me where holiday holidays was when
Yes,
came to
it's.
your
I mean,
house.
it was there up until probably.
It was next to ICI,
That's right. Yes. Yes.
and he used to cycle in all weathers. That 7 miles or so
Yeah.
from the house to, would you call it Deaton in Huddersfield?
It is Dean. Yes.
Deaton. And not only that, he would then cycle 2 or 3 nights a week from Deaton to Bradford Technical College, up through over Hartshead Moor, where somewhere near where you had a house.
That's right. Prospect View.
And then he would cycle back from Bradford to his home in Whisper.
Yeah.
And all that would be something like 25 or 30 miles in the course of a day. And no matter what the conditions, rain, sun, fine, whatever, snow,
Yeah.
he did that for perhaps 2 or 3 years. And then in 1937, Walter went and got a job at Woolwich Arsenal. And he never came back to live at the family house.
Yeah.
I was always at home.
Yeah.
I stayed at home right through till 1947.
Yes.
I was never involved in the war because my medical condition didn't permit it. I was, as they said, grade 4, which meant that I wasn't fit for military service.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to stay in my civilian job all through that time.
Yeah.
Then in 1947 I was moved to Watford, and within days I met Beryl. And we formed a partnership straight away.
You've never looked back since.
Never looked back since, as you said.
Don't know about that.
So that's my history, as it were.
Yes.
Uh,
So I mean, when you met, I mean, did you? Was that when you lived in Hillingdon? No.
No, we had a flat in Bushy, which was a suburb of Watford,
Yeah.
and we were there for 4 years, I think, weren't we? Something like nearly 4 years.
Yeah.
You didn't get married till 49.
No, that's right. And we were there till 54, weren't we?
We moved to the flat in March. We got married in the June. We moved to the
Wait a
flat.
minute, it was 1950 when we went into the flat,
Yes.
and we were there about 4
4
years,
years it was.
and then we moved to Hillingdon. You came to Hillingdon, didn't you?
No.
Or did you?
No, I can't remember
No,
that.
because we left Hillingdon in 54.
I mean,
Before
I
you were
remember
born,
you
isn't
speaking
it?
about Hillingdon, and I know that's.
Your father came with Ruby
Before they were married.
before they were married.
I think so.
Yes, that's true. They
Yeah.
did.
And that was the day that they went to Brighton and my mum got so badly burnt by the sun.
Oh, really?
They came down for the
Like
week.
history repeating itself.
We left Hillingdon in 54.
Yes.
56.
Fif-
66.
We
left
were
Bushy
there from
in
54 to 66.
And
just
that was
over
when the
12
year I
years.
was born. Then.
54.
No, 66.
66.
Yes.
Oh.
And then that's when you came here. Right.
And we've been here since August 66, nearly 40 years.
Yes.
In another 2 or 3 months.
August the 10th.
So when I mean, I remember. What year would your mother have died?
71.
71.
She was 76 years of age.
Because I do remember as a small boy going
Yes.
to see
She
her with my
died on
dad.
the 31st of May in Staincliffe General Hospital,
Yes.
1971.
Yeah.
And just 2 or 3 days before she died, I made a special journey up there to see her because I knew she couldn't last long.
Yeah. Yeah.
And your father really looked after the funeral arrangements for me.
Yeah.
He made all the arrangements without my having to go back until the actual funeral day.
Yeah.
And he did an awful lot for my mother, more particularly after my father died.
Yes.
He sort of
Stepped in as son, didn't he?
stepped in almost as a son. In a sense, I suppose he would think it his duty to do that because
Well, I'm
of
gonna
all
say-
the care he had received from my mother
That's right,
in
yes.
his very young days.
It was like a second mother to him, wasn't it?
Yes,
Wasn't
she
it?
was.
Yeah.
She was.
Yeah.
Um,
But I mean, I remember at the house that she was, I mean, I remember the clock on the, I think it was on a dresser.
Yes.
Yes,
He went to the
yes.
door.
Yes, I mean, I remember
Did
that
you
clock then.
did you ever go to 17 Northview yourself?
Yes.
That's what
You
he
did?
said.
Yes.
That would be in the last years of my
I mean,
mother's
I
life.
do remember
You were
your
born
mother.
in 66.
Yes,
My mother died in 31st of May 71,
yes, so I think that's right.
so you'll be just over 5.
I mean, I do.
I can see it now, the clock on the dresser
Mm,
and the cupboard in the opposite corner
mm.
and the range with the oven and the fire and the bookcase on the right and the bay window.
And the mirror in the alcove where she'd sit on the settee and look out of the window and she could see the people.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. You carry on. Do you want me to point the camera at you?
So,
I mean, I don't. To be honest, I don't remember the house much. I remember the front of it a little bit.
there's just a few details that you might be interested in about George Wraith's period of service he was in the army,
Yes.
but he spent most of his time on a hospital ship which travelled in the Mediterranean, principally between Marseille and Salonika,
Yes.
and that seemed to be his route.
Mm.
I'm sure he must have travelled elsewhere, but all the stories I heard about his service were on this troop ship,
Yeah.
which sailed between Marseille and Salonika.
Yeah.
That is now known as Thessalonica. And we went to Thessalonica ourselves, didn't we?
Mm.
I've never been to Marseille. He was almost a male nurse, I suppose,
Yes.
aboard the troop ship.
I mean, a medical orderly,
Medical orderly, that will be
because
perhaps
that's something I think I've heard mentioned
the right sort of
before. Yes.
title.
Yes.
And he was pretty smart, and he was small and nifty and really got on with what he had to do. And he was promoted to the rank of corporal.
Mm.
I don't know how long it took him to reach the rank of corporal, but I suppose his whole service would perhaps be no longer than 18 months or
Yeah.
so.
The strange thing I find about him is that in the pictures of him, you either see him that wedding anniversary photo, he seems like a very young man there, but then in other photos he seems a very old man, and there doesn't seem to be much in between. I mean, I'll show you what I mean.
It was during that war service that he developed malaria.
See, I mean
That really crippled
If you
him
look
for the
at-
rest of his life. He's quite an old man there, isn't he?
yes, and
Yes.
you either see him sort of as he is there
Yeah,
or as he
yes,
is there,
yes,
and there
yes.
doesn't really seem to be anything in
Well,
between.
it was his war service that really was the beginning of his medical problem, I suppose.
Yes, yeah.
Because he certainly had malaria quite
So what-
severely.
I mean, what did he?
Certainly.
So when he was 57, what did he actually die of? Do you know?
No, not properly. Have you seen the death certificate?
No, I haven't.
No. This malaria troubled him all the rest of his life.
Yeah.
And he was never a strong sort of person.
Mm.
what I remember of him was that he used to play bowls. He was a member of the club that met in Furness Park,
Yes.
and he was I think, a fairly accurate player.
Yeah.
But I never saw him play.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
And he had this sort of malaria hanging around him
Yeah.
all the rest of his life, so far as I know, and that might have been a contributory cause to his
Yeah.
death.
Yeah.
But he was never strong.
Yeah. Because I remember my dad saying he was never the same when he came back, you know, sort of during the war.
No, I think that's true.
Yeah.
Though, of course,
Because I think my mum has said this, sort of he went as a young man and came back an old man.
the age for call-up in those days was, when he was liable for military service, was 18 years and 8 months.
Mm.
And they called him up before his time was due.
Yeah.
And the story is that my father went down with him with his birth certificate to the employment exchange, which would be responsible for issuing these notices, I suppose,
Yeah.
and convinced the authorities that he wasn't yet liable.
Yeah.
And he had a few months more before he was properly called up,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
see. I don't know where he was trained. This was before my time, you see.
Yeah.
By the time I was born, he'd be out of the army. And all I have to go on is hearsay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm convinced that I've got the facts right about sailing the Mediterranean in the troop ship.
Yes. So, would you? Well,
You see, let's get this right. He was born in April 1898,
yes.
so that by the time he was 18 years and 8 months old, it would be the end of 1916, wouldn't it? December 1916. So I suppose it would be a week or two before he was actually conscripted. So that seems to suggest that his conscription would date from about the beginning of 1917.
Yeah.
And the war, as you will remember, finished in November the following year. All right, he wouldn't be discharged immediately, so his military service was probably something like 2 years, just over 2 years probably.
Yeah. I mean, what do you remember? Do you remember much about his father, or your mum's father?
Yes, I do.
Mm.
I knew my granddad very well.
Yes.
He died when I was just short of 16.
Mm.
He was a grand old man.
Yes.
I was very fond of him.
Where did he live?
In this house in Bethlehem Street.
Oh, right. Yes.
I think it was number 27. I'm sure about that.
Yeah.
But it was the end house, and then over the wall was Brotherton's. Hatton Brotherton's father, I think, lived there.
Yeah.
And then there was this passage in between, which you could scoot down, and the Leatham Street house was just on the left as you went down the passage.
Yeah.
So they were almost back to back with his father.
Yeah.
Almost, not quite.
Yes.
Sorry, have I answered your question?
Yes. Sorry. Yes. Yes. I was wondering if you carried on. What about his wife? Your
Lizzie?
grandmother. Yes.
Oh, she
I
was
mean, she lived what, a couple of
something
years
else.
longer than he did, didn't she?
She lived 18 months after he died.
Yes.
She was a year younger than he was.
Yeah.
I don't know how they met.
Mm.
There must have been some link with Murfield, because I heard a lot about the Flower Pot Inn
All right.
which must have been the area from which John Henry Wraith emerged, although it says he was born in Wakefield, doesn't it?
Yes, yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
My grandma was a fairly robust sort of person. She had frizzy hair. Tuesday was wash day, and she would bring her washing and do it with my mother at 17 Northview on a
Yes.
Tuesday.
Yes.
And I don't know why, but Tuesday was always a miserable rainy day. When you put the washing on, it never properly got dry.
Yeah, yeah.
But the arrangement was that some people washed on a Monday and some people washed on a Tuesday, and that was so that there was more room for drying clothes in the backyard, as it were.
Yeah. Now, your grandfather, I mean, John Henry Wraith,
Yes.
I mean, he was the eldest of, well, he had, well, as far as I've got, he had brothers Joseph, William, George, Edward, and he had a sister Janet. Do you remember any
I
of
knew
those?
nothing. I knew nothing of them at all. I don't remember. Have you got them written down?
Yes.
William Wraith.
You okay over there? You too?
They're fine.
Enjoying the show.
Like Titanic.
I never knew any of them.
Yeah.
No. It was a very small family circle that I grew up in.
Yes.
I was really... My brother, who was 2.5 years older than me,
Yeah.
was very much a Furness.
Mm.
I was really a Wraith,
Yes.
in temperament and outlook.
Why? What was the Furness temperament?
Very severe, restricted,
Restricted in what way?
very... What's the word?
I remember up.
They were semi-religious people,
Right.
and not very happy people at that, I
Mhm.
think. Whenever you went to the family home, which my father didn't marry till he was 40,
Yes.
there was that feeling of you had to be on your best behaviour.
Formal home.
Very, very strict in the sense that you had to be at chapel every Sunday.
Yes.
I was brought up to go morning, noon and night.
And did you resent that?
No,
Mm.
I can't say that I did. I think one of the reasons for that was because my hero was the minister,
Right.
Samuel Gibson.
Yes.
And I thought he was a grand chap, and he thought the same about me, I think. He was only there 4 years, from the time that I was 3 to about 7,
Yes.
and I thought the world of him.
Yeah.
Um,
So was your mum sort of more laid back?
well, the minister,
No, your mother. Was Annie sort of more relaxed?
oh yes,
Yes.
yes.
So what do you think the Wraith traits were then? Sort of from your mother's side. Sorry?
Stubbornness.
Stubborn.
No. My mother was very loving
Mm.
and almost sacrificial.
Yes.
She never had any money to speak of.
Mm.
She was a lot younger than my father, 18 years younger,
Yes.
which was a tremendous difference when they married at 40 and 22,
Well, yes, yeah.
you see.
Mm.
I think my mother was always attractive, you know, you can see her photographs there,
Yeah.
and she probably had a fair number of suitors.
Mm.
Why my father won out, I just don't know. I think I think she asked her parents what she should do, and Grandad said marry Dean,
Yeah.
so she did. But she spoke to me later about people who had admired her and probably would have liked to have married her.
Yes.
Indeed, she had a chap she was going out with, a chap called Horty, who was killed in the First World War.
Right.
And
And was this when she was going out with him?
she couldn't have been more than 18 or 19 at the time, I think. And when the war started in 14, she'd be 20, or just about.
Yeah.
And she was going out with this fellow called, I think, John Horty. My recollection is that he was the organist at St John's.
Yes.
He was certainly in a musical tradition, and I remember his mother, Polly Horty, who lived just a couple of doors away from us in Northview.
Yeah. Yeah.
My mother at the time worked at Pontefract, which was a sewing and clothing factory somewhere up Daisy Hill in Dewsbury.
Yeah.
And it used to upset her a great deal when the soldiers' uniforms came back blood soiled and had to be washed and repaired and
I can imagine.
put back. More particularly because the man she loved and wanted to marry had been killed himself.
Yeah.
I was never allowed into this.
It's quite a cruel,
I never
cruel
heard
reminder.
anything about this chap Horty
Yeah.
until my mother never told me.
Yes.
And it's just the sort of thing you pick up later from what people's recollections of my mother were. She was very loving, and we had a very happy home life. She would do anything to help us and encourage us. When she was sometime around 1926, I think, we went on holiday to Cleethorpes, and she was pregnant at the time.
Yeah.
And the child died in the womb. And they had the most difficult problem in getting rid of that child. Whether they had to cut her up in some way or not, I don't know. But after that, she was always an invalid.
And how old would you have been at the time?
I was 5.
Right.
I remember coming back in a taxi from Cleethorpes on the Monday to fetch my grandma to come to Cleethorpes to look after her.
Yeah.
And I think she probably stayed on after we came back from...
She would have been in a hospital there.
No, she was in the boarding house.
All right.
She was too ill to move.
Yeah.
And she probably had an hemorrhage of some sort. And whilst I didn't know at the time what the cause of it all was, you piece things together.
Well, yes, that's
don't
right.
you?
You put the evidence together, don't you?
That was the time when her legs went, wasn't it?
Yes. And after that, when she was herself only 33, no, wait a minute. Yeah, I suppose about 32 or 33 when this happened.
Yes.
She was never particularly strong or able after that. It didn't affect the way in which she went about looking after the house, and that, my brother and I, and my father.
But it did affect her.
It affected her all right, yes. And she always carried this sort of affection for a former boyfriend, I think, although she never told us about it.
Do you think she had any regrets about marrying your father?
I think she must have been terribly disappointed when her boyfriend died, was
Well,
killed.
yes, yeah.
I'm sure she would. I'm sure it would influence her a great deal.
Yeah.
But having said that, there were only 3 years, no less than that, 2.5 years between the start of the war and they're getting married to my father.
Yeah.
So she must have got over it pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how long into the war that it was that this fellow Orty was killed.
Yeah.
It must have been fairly early on, I think.
Yeah, I just think so.
And I think, I get the feeling, I can't be sure of this, of the facts, that probably my mother had been, how she came to be in the Methodist Church, I don't know. Unless it was that it was so much handier to send her there than it was to go to St. John's.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess that my father had known her when she was quite a child.
Yeah.
And I think she was in the Band of Hope, as we called it, a temperance sort of
So
group.
interesting. I think you would find it fascinating. Because it's local as well, it's things that happened,
Yes.
you know, in the local...
Just as a matter of commentary on all we've been discussing,
Mm-hmm.
my father was often out of work in the 20s and 30s. For a year or two, he went around as a hawker,
Yes.
selling wool,
Door to door.
which he got from his brother, who had a shop in Heckmondwike.
Right. His brother, what was his brother's name?
Moses.
Oh, right, yes.
There were at least 4 brothers that I remember. There was Moses, who was the eldest. There was my father, Dean, who was the second male.
It was Jessie.
There was Jessie, who died.
Francis.
Francis was the eldest of the girls.
Sarah.
Sarah died young,
Right, where's that pen on me?
probably in her teens.
Amy.
I never knew her.
Amy, yes.
Amy.
Amy was not
She was
more than about
10.
10pence in the shilling. She was a bit mental.
Subnormal.
But
There was another one, wasn't there?
There was Willie.
Yeah.
there was Walter and Willie.
Now-
Willie was the youngest.
Did he marry Mary and he had William, John and Margaret?
That's right.
And
That's
William
right.
lived in
No.
Brighouse.
Willie, my uncle Willie, lived to be 90. He attained a greater age than any of these.
So he died about 1986?
He was born in 85, so he would die in 75, I suppose, or 76. Willie was born on the 1st of July 1885. I remember that.
Right, okay.
He lived to be
He died at
90.
67.
He died in his 91st year. And then there was Walter, who,
He was born about 1883, he was about 3 years younger, was he?
something like that,
Yes.
I just don't know. He married,
Leah.
no, he married Ethel Webb, was it? He married a girl by the name of Webb, and they lived at Howding Plough, which you will know,
Yes.
and they had a daughter and a son. Now, Ethel, I think that was her name, I couldn't be quite sure,
Yeah.
always felt that she wasn't quite worthy of her husband, and she committed suicide
Right.
when her 2 children were very, very young.
Yes.
And then Walter years later married Leah, who, it wasn't a good partnership really.
I don't think it was, no.
Mm.
Uh,
I only met her once, but
and eventually he got so fed up that he committed suicide himself.
All right.
And that must have been in the 50s, I think.
So who are we talking about here? Walter?
My brother,
no.
No,
Uncle.
no,
Sorry.
Uncle Walter.
my uncle Walter.
Sorry, who were you talking about then who committed suicide?
Him.
I was talking about my uncle Walter, who was
Right,
the
yes.
father of Dean and Moses and
Yes.
Willie and
Yeah, I
Wallace
thought so.
and the rest of them.
Yeah.
There were 10 children of that marriage. This was before the times of contraception, you see.
My mother is one of 8.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Well, there were 10 children of that marriage.
Do you know any of the names?
Well, there was Moses.
Oh, sorry. So
You've got
you
them
talk.
there, Moses.
Sorry, I thought you were talking about his brothers and sisters. You're talking about Florrie, Willie, Walter,
Yes,
Francis, right?
that was the family of 10.
5, 6, 7, 8. I've only got 9 here.
Well, there was Moses, Dean,
Yeah,
Walter, Willie,
yeah.
and one who died, Jesse, died in his 40s, I think.
Yeah, got Jessie.
So that was 5 boys, presumably therefore there were 5 girls, which were Frances,
Yeah,
Amy,
yeah.
Well,
Florrie, Sarah, who died young,
Yeah.
and I think a girl who died as a baby.
Do you know her name?
No, I don't.
Because that's the one I haven't got. I've got all the others.
Yes, yes. I think I've got that right, but I wouldn't be sure of it.
And, so that was another female.
Yes, I think there were 5 boys and 5 girls at that marriage. My mother's maiden name was Howgett.
That was her first name was Ellen, was it?
Yes,
Eli, and that's what his father's name was, and Ellen his mother's.
his father's name was Eli,
Yeah.
and he grew up in Elland and came when work wasn't easily found. He came down the valley to Dewsbury, and I suppose he must have gone into digs,
Mm.
and met Ellen Howgett,
Yeah.
who was one of the families who later became funeral directors.
Right. Howgett spelt Howgate.
G-A-T-E, yes. Did you know that there was a Moses Howgett who was employed by the gas company? And he used to go around collecting money out of meters and that sort of thing.
Yes.
And would you believe it? There's no such thing as electric flash lamps at the time. So he took a box of matches and a taper and went around.
Lighting the gas lights.
Well, if that had an explosion, you wouldn't have been surprised, would you, if there were any leaks, you see. But that was the way.
Yeah, yeah.
And now, Moses Howgett will be older than my father, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I think he married twice. And his second wife was somebody called White. And I think she had an illegitimate daughter whose name was Dorothy White, and she married Fred Ryder of the Spen Valley Milk Dairy Company.
Well, that's who my grandma used to work for. My
Yeah.
mum's mum.
Really?
Rennie. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
I mean, what do you remember? Or do you remember anything about my mum and dad getting together and her
Through
parents?
the introduction of my father, you see, who sort of recommended more to George Wraith, and I think he was responsible for arranging their first meeting. I wouldn't be sure.
No, I was
No,
talking
no, I'm talking about my mum and dad.
Your own
Kenneth
father.
and yeah.
Kenneth.
Well, what's the question?
Well, what do you remember about them getting together? I mean, obviously, my mum
What was
couldn't.
Ruby?
Yes, and what do you remember? Do you remember anything about her parents, Rennie and Cyril?
I always got the feeling that your mum ran after your father.
Right. Yeah.
Uh,
She might dispute this.
As I say, you bet.
She was the younger
See that.
of two sisters, wasn't she?
Yes, yes, she was.
Uh,
Elder sister.
whom I knew as a youth. They were a
Yes.
lot younger than me.
Because her elder sister was.
Jean,
Yes.
yes.
I mean.
She married a chap called Swift, didn't she?
That's right, Anthony Swift.
Mm.
But my auntie Jean, I mean, she was. Her mother got pregnant before she was married, so I think they had to get married then. But there was also, I mean, in recent years we found, it's come to light, there's a newspaper article where I think basically my grandfather abandoned my mum's mum, and she had to take him to court
Yes, I've heard you
to
all
pay
say that.
to get maintenance, or to actually pay his way for it. I think he got fined for it. But from
So
what I
who was this?
This was my granddad on my mother's side, my mum's mum.
Ruby's.
Ruby's
Yeah.
father.
Yeah, Cyril.
Cyril.
Cyril Squire.
Yes, Cyril was a character.
Yes.
Did you
yes.
know him?
I did, yes.
Yes.
Um,
He was a gardener for the corporation.
that's right. Yeah, that's when I knew him.
Mm.
I mean, I think.
But he was a very individual sort of person who would only do things his own way.
Yes, yes.
Uh,
I mean, he was probably best described as he could be awkward.
yes,
Yes.
he certainly could.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I mean, there was. I don't think my mum sort of cared for him too much. And I think even my grandma, I don't think she was. I mean, when he passed away, I don't think she was, sort of totally upset.
What was his twin?
no, your grandma was Rennie, wasn't she?
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
Whom I knew not terribly well. I got to know her later only because Kenneth married into that family.
Yes.
you see.
Yeah. Yeah.
She came down to stay at our house here, at least twice.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Uh,
But you didn't really know much about them. I mean, do you remember anything else about my granddad, Cyril?
I didn't really know him.
No. Right. Okay.
Uh,
I mean, I
You
suppose
see,
there's no great reason for
It
it.
was, by the time your parents were getting acquainted,
Mhm.
which would be in the 50s,
Yeah.
I suppose.
Yeah.
I was away from Dewsbury in 1947,
Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
and so I didn't really have much acquaintance with your mother's family at all.
Well, no. I can imagine.
It was only what Kenneth and Ruby told me about her father that I'm speaking about. Really.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I had no personal knowledge of it.
Yeah. I mean, there's some kind of thing in Westborough Methodist Church about. In fact, I've got it. Is it the font or?
Oh, the font, yes.
Yes.
That was given by the Furness family, my father's brothers and sisters, in memory of their parents.
Yes.
And that's the inscription on it. There's that inscription on it, and on the plate of which you see at the bottom.
Right. Because I've never seen that.
Have you not?
No.
it's not still in use.
I don't know. I really should go and
It
sort of
used to
investigate.
stand on the table within the communion rail.
Yes.
I thought they
Well,
were
if it's still there,
closing.
I'm told.
I thought they closed the chapel. Oh,
No, it's still. I mean, I passed it just the other day, and it's still.
Boarded up.
No. I mean, I don't know if it's still used, but it all looks as if it.
I understand that they hold services in the school room just above,
Yeah, there's like yes.
is that where you
which is
went?
we went.
No.
It was obviously in use when your father died because we held his
Yes.
service in there. Didn't
And that's where I got married.
we? Is it?
Mm.
Yes.
Yes. But I remember going into the schoolroom above it. So you're talking about further up Green Lane.
Yeah.
Yes. Because I remember going to garden parties with my grandma, sort of, which, if the weather was bad, then they might quite often held in there.
What was held in there?
Garden parties, they used to be
Garden
sort of, yeah.
party, Yes, yes.
But
George Worth had a gramophone.
mm,
It was his one relaxation, I suppose. He was fond of music. He liked military bands,
yes.
as your father did, of course. And he had a fair selection of 78 records. Well, I say 78, I mean 78 revs a minute.
Oh yes, yeah.
Which he used to play,
Mm.
and which he would occasionally take to a bazaar or something of that sort,
Yeah.
so that people could listen to them and pay for the privilege, as it were.
Obviously, long before the days of sort of television and
Yes, indeed. Well, television really didn't come until the 50s, I think,
No,
did it?
1953 was when it really started,
Yes.
the Queen's coronation.
yes. Mm.
Yes,
I mean, I remember seeing a television before the war.
yes.
Mm.
Some friends of my mother and father's, we went there
I don't
once.
think I did.
And I remember seeing it. It was, the screen was only about so big. But I can just remember that.
Yeah.
That was, I would have been, well,
But I remember going to Mr. Holland's for the
yes, we went there for the
Coronation.
coronation.
Mm.
Yes.
we ourselves, I think, had a television.
We didn't have a television till about 1960.
Something like that, when
Yeah.
Colin was about 7 perhaps,
So I was, well,
when children really needed to have access to a television to be able to converse with
well,
them.
our neighbours had it. The Lisleys had one.
Yes,
And they used to let Colin go in there to watch the children's programme.
yes.
And then when he started school, we thought we'd better get one.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's a bit like
I was going to
computers.
say, it's like
Early 60s when we first
Yeah.
had television, I guess.
You think your child's disadvantaged if you don't have a computer.
Well,
So it was just the same in those days.
yeah, yes.
I do have a very a good memory of watching the television when we lived in Prospect View at Hartshead. So I must have been a maximum of 2, and I remember watching Magic Roundabout
Yeah.
then.
Well, when we were living in Hillingdon, we had to get things by instalments, as it were, as we could afford them, because
Yes.
we certainly weren't going to have things on tick or on hire purchase.
Yes.
And the first real investment we made was in a
Spin drive.
spin dryer, wasn't it?
Yes.
Excuse me.
And then